go. Welcome. Hi, I'm Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Deer Talk Now podcast. Along with my crack producer, David Gillane, we are on number, I don't know, a lot of them. We thank you for listening and watching wherever you're consuming this podcast, and all we ask you to do is like and subscribe. Okay, so there's very few things in life that you get to do that just happen to you right away. And number one is have a longtime friend and living legend show up in your office out of nowhere and then get a chance to embarrass them on national podcasts. I am with Jim Spencer today. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here, Dan.
You know, Jim, you drove up from Arkansas. It's been raining all day, and you're coming through some of the best turkey hunting country in the land. That's got to get you kind of itching here.
Well, it has. We've been fighting rain for the past 10 days, I think, and I'm getting kind of pruny. I'm ready for it to be over with.
Be over with. If you guys don't know Jim, you really honestly haven't read anything in your life. He is our editor emeritus of The Trapper. This magazine started the trapping industry in 1975. He's been with turkey and turkey hunting since its inception. Jim, you have been around the block so many times, and I don't mean to say that condescendingly or in a bad way. You've seen a lot of things in your life. You've worked a lot of places in your life, but you've been in the hunting industry for almost your whole life, haven't you?
Pretty much. I hate to say the words, but I'm 77 years old, and about 65 or 70 of them have been outdoors.
My goodness. And you have you work for one of the larger newspapers in Arkansas. I know back in the day when newspapers were like the king of content. Mm-hmm. And now that's been supplanted by, you know, the internet and Facebook and Instagram and all these things. Where have you seen, like, what has your experience been, just been seeing that whole transition over the years?
Well, it's the paradigm shift for sure. It's been, well, my wife Jill Easton and I used to have a syndicated newspaper column, self-syndicated in Arkansas, and we had 28 papers, I do believe, at one time, and just almost overnight that dried up. Just from between one year and the next, we went from that many papers down to about 10, and then down to about 2, and then it was gone. The social media and the internet have surely taken over from the old-fashioned print magazines, you know, that we all grew up with. You're no spring chicken yourself.
No, I'm not. I was going to say I thought you were. You wear your years very well, but we're here to talk mostly about hunting because it's the Deer Talk Now podcast, and you have learned so many things, and you've taught so many people through your experiences, whether you're trapping or hunting or and whatever type of hunting that is. But the basis of this chat, I want it to be about, you know how to trap critters. You know how to trap coyotes and fox and whatever else is out there. And I know that skill set for any person will make them a better deer hunter. Am I not right on that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've always said that if you show me a good squirrel hunter, I'll show you a good deer, or a good hunter, period. You show me a good trapper, I'll show you a good outdoorsman. You have to be observant above all else, and if you're going to trap, and that leads you to being observant in all other things. Trappers are anything in the outdoors a trapper sets his mind to, he can do. Deer hunting, some of the best trappers I know are some of the best deer hunters I know, and I'll bet
same
thing.
You. So, show me a guy who can trap, because for me it's what you said about being observant, because that's really learning the behavior and biology of the animal.
There you go.
And then with that is scent, and that is outside of turkeys, if turkey can smell, we'd never kill one. But outside of turkeys, if you can win that scent game, you can become very successful. And I know that with trapping, how is that different from, say, a fox to a coyote to a raccoon? What is the difference in their ability to smell?
Well, depending on which authority you go by, a coyote, say, has a million times more scent receptors, or several million maybe, than a human does. So that gives you some idea of how acute their smelling is, and I'm sure deer are the same way. I don't know the figures.
The
on deer.
epithelium in a deer's nose is much larger, obviously, if you look at the examples.
Yeah, look at here's the nose versus.
But like with to use your example, to use a coyote, with a deer, we've got to get 20 yards away, 30 yards away. A coyote, you got to get.
There you go, a square inch.
A square inch,
yeah,
which is that pan, and you got to get him to step on that pan without smelling you. So how do you go about doing that?
Well, in trapping, human scent is overrated, I think.
Really?
I mean, that we just said a million times he can smell you a million times better than we can. How are you going to go odorless and make a scent? You can't. You can't. You're shedding skin cells at a rate of 1,000 a minute or whatever the figure is. And he's going to know you were there. You just minimize that. You try to minimize it and make the set get out of the way. Same way with deer hunting. They're going to if you walk a trail, you can have skunk pee on you all you want, and they can pick it out. I think, but if human odor stopped an animal from doing something, he couldn't move in today's world. You know,
that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Everywhere. You want to minimize it. I mean, you don't want to pee under your tree stand or whatever, you know. But I think due diligence is all you need to do. Just don't be sloppy.
So what do you think the key is? Because you do have those extreme examples where you have some guys saying, I have to walk on eggshells, I've got to treat everything that I've got, as opposed to the other guy who's smoking a cigarette on a stump saying, that doesn't bother those deer, that I can kill them anyway.
Biggest deer I ever killed was I was smoking a cigarette when he was
So there you go.
But, of course, my wife made me quit all that mess. So, but, it's a matter of common sense. You cannot be odorless. You cannot.
But it's just about maximizing those opportunities.
There you go.
So let's talk
do
about
the best you can.
Let's relate it into behavior, because the two are interchanged or intertwined, in that I can't put out a mock scrape, which I do put out a lot of them. I just can't put out a mock scrape in the middle of wherever and expect, this is going to bring the deer here. Just like you can't throw a trap in the middle of the Kmart parking lot and expect to catch a coyote.
You got to be on location.
So tell us about that. How do you dissect a piece of woods, whether you're trapping or deer hunting?
Well, it's just like the old real estate saw: location are your three most important things. That's true in deer hunting or trapping or whatever outdoor fishing. You know, if you put a hook in the water where there's no fish, you won't catch one. And same way with deer, since we're using deer as the primary subject here, deer are cover oriented, you know that. But the thing of it is, if you're in too thick a cover, if he's there, you can't see him anyway. So you've got to pick and choose your spots, slight openings, and they're creatures of the edge, just like most other animals are. You know, they're at home in a thickly wooded area, but they still like that edge. You see them on the edge of fields all the time, and that's been my experience. That's mostly where you'll find the scrapes too, along woods trails, along ridge lines, travel ways, and it's the same thing with any other animal you're talking about. We're bouncing back and forth between trapping and deer hunting here. Same thing with trapping. Most animals are creatures of the edge, or they follow waterways, or they follow field edges, or they follow canyon rims, whatever type of country you're in. And it's not rocket science. It's to the beginner, it seems, wow, there's all this territory here. And where am I going to set? Well, just where would you travel if you were going through that area? And that deer's going to travel pretty much the same route, because he's lazy, just like you are. He'll take the easiest route almost every time. All other things being equal. If you mess that up by putting a bunch of human scent in there, well, yeah, you might screw him up.
So that's one thing that I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered it, is we seem to overcomplicate this, especially today, in this digital world with mapping apps. We didn't have that when I was younger.
No.
We didn't have it when you were younger. Like, as far as we maybe had an aerial photo if we were lucky, but for the most part, you had to just get your boots on the ground and make some educated guesses.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and pretty much it's the same way today. You mentioned hunting apps; they're very useful, and I use them every time I go hunting. But I still, you can overcomplicate it. It's still a guessing game between you and that critter. It's a one-on-one thing between you and a specific animal, especially with deer. You find a deer and hunt that deer, don't you?
Yeah, try to.
I'm a meat guy.
Well, so I'm both. David can tell you that. I'm both.
Excuse me, but it's don't use these things as a crutch. Use them as a tool.
That's exactly what I was trying to get out was, so like you're driving from here, you're gonna go back home, and you're driving through, let's just say 10,000 acres of state land. What's the first? You call up your app. What's the first thing you're looking for if you want to tackle that, whether it's for deer or turkeys or trapping?
Terrain breaks, stream channels, like I said, the edges between open land and not. What else? Openings within a block of woods, food, what we call food plots or wildlife openings. Mm-hmm. Those kind of things. Anything that stands out to you, to your eye on that map or on the ground is worth checking out.
And
anything different.
A fancy word for that is an ecotone, where
there you go.
Where one type of terrain overlaps another. Do you still believe in, back in the day when I first started, they said you got to get way back in there. The most important thing is you got to get way back in there. You still believe in that or no?
I never did believe in it.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of times, the middle. We live in a 170,000 acre piece of national forest. We have an in-holding in Arkansas. We own 30 acres of a 40 acre in-holding. And people ask me how much land we own. I tell them 170,030 acres. But we live pretty close to the edge of one side of it. On our gravel road, when deer season or turkey season opens, the dust never settles for the first 3 or 4 days, and they're all going into the middle. We're sitting out here on the edge where there's very little pressure because everybody thinks, well, there's the boundaries of the national forest. I got to get way back in there, and everybody's in a clot right in the middle. They drive past a lot of good stuff. We just let them do it.
That's pretty awesome. That's an awesome approach. I would like to try. Well, I have done that with turkey hunting. Turkey hunting, I've basically gone off of, those the edges, but also where are those turkeys probably roosting, and that's a lot easier to figure out than where are these deer. I mean, you do find deer trails, but for the most part, that's a coin flip because it's normally not during hunting season. Mm-hmm. Normally, those are travel routes, probably to farm fields that are private. Mm-hmm. Later in the season. But that's a good tactic, I think, for anybody who's deer hunting, who still adheres to that. I don't know if any of you guys still do, but I did for a long time. Oh, and you'd always say, oh, I got a mile back in there. I got 2 miles back in there. Well, that mile was 400 yards. You know what I mean? And you just, oh my gosh, I am back in the top of the world. But everybody is doing. I mean, you see, there's a lot of YouTube channels making a living off of this. That's what their thing is tackling that public land. Mm-hmm. So let's bring it to turkey hunting is, I think, much more beneficial to a deer hunter if I had to choose the two. And here's why. And let me know if you agree with this, and then pile on. But I think if you can learn, these guys taught me, and I was still wet behind the ears when I started this job 30 years ago. They said if you can really learn the topography, that's how you kill turkeys, is that you have to know where there's an old fence in the woods, you have to know where they're roosting, you have to know where they're going. But once I learned that, it just opened a whole new world for me for deer hunting, where I thought, oh, this is a natural runway. There's 2 little wilderness lakes, and the deer got to come through there. That was one of the things I probably read from Jim Churchill 50 years ago. And it was probably true for back then. But once I learned, like, no, there's wrinkles in this topography that I learned by turkey hunting that I would never figured out by sitting in a climber for 10 hours a day the whole hunting season.
Yeah, exactly. The whole, I mean, there are a lot of people that have a small property to hunt. They have to stay in one spot to hunt a turkey. They can't roam. But by and large, turkey hunting is a lot more ground-eating sport than deer hunting. You sit and wait mostly for deer. There's spot and stalk people, but that's mostly out west. In the eastern half of the United States, it's mostly a sit and wait thing, as we all know, which is frankly why I'm not as interested in deer hunting as I am turkey hunting, because I like things to be happening, and you can at least create the illusion of action by moving around.
Sure.
But like you said, you also learn the lay of the land, and that when spring is gone and fall is here, that what you learned in turkey season can help you a lot in patterning a deer or figuring out where to start looking to pattern one.
Deer Talk Now is brought to you by Traditions. As you probably know, 2 years ago they came out with the Nitro Fire in collaboration with Federal Premium and Hodgdon. The Fire Stick, they shoot through those guns. This has really changed muzzleloading and has made it more safer, more accurate. Check them out today at traditionsfirearms.com. So let's talk about the Southeast, because that's your home and you love it. What is the current state of the affairs for deer hunting, for coyote populations, for turkey populations?
Wow.
We're going to talk about, 8, 10 southeastern states. We're talking about South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas.
Probably Louisiana. Mississippi.
We'd include them. I don't think we include Texas or Oklahoma. But I know you have some specific challenges in the Southeast.
Well, we do. It's a very complex situation overall. But we've got the deer diseases making an inroad. They started out in the West and then it's slowly moving our way. And people are talking about, establishing the zones and try to get rid of, what is it?
CWD.
CWD, yeah, I was struggling for the name. And I don't think there's any way to stop it. I really don't. But I'm not all that worried about it because they didn't run out of deer out west. The deer develop what they call herd immunity, and you're going to lose some deer, and the population is going to go down for a while, and then things will level back out. It's not going to be the end of deer hunting.
What about EHD?
Yeah.
Have you had that hit by you? I know they're dealing with it bad in Iowa and Illinois and Missouri and even out in Kentucky and some areas.
We had a bad EHD, call it blue tongue, whatever you want to call it. When I was a young man in Arkansas, and that's a long time ago, in Arkansas, and I believe it was the late 60s, early 70s in South Arkansas, we had a tremendous die-off of hoof and mouth, blue tongue, EHD, whatever you want to call it, in the deer population. And they were finding deer, I mean, it's just a smell of carrion everywhere you went, and down in the Piney Woods, South Arkansas. Now they're back.
And Arkansas is a pretty darn good deer hunting
state.
Yeah,
well, the size is marginal in a lot of the stuff because we're poor quality soils, piney woods and stuff.
There's not much you can do about that.
No, you can't. But number wise, Arkansas is a very good deer state.
Very good deer state.
And the Delta produces some monsters too. So we do have some big deer, but not statewide. But that said, we've got a tremendous deer population in the state, probably over 1 million animals right now.
What about the turkey population?
It's better than it has been in the past 10 years, but it took a heck of a hit.
What's going on with the Southeast turkey populations?
I think one thing that is not being talked about is the increase in turkey hunters, and they're more efficient now than they used to be. Information's available. You've got all these tools that we didn't have when we were young hunters.
Lifelike decoys.
Lifelike
better
decoys,
calls.
reaping, which is a whole nother. Let's don't even get into that one.
You guys don't know what that is. That's when you're taking a fan type decoy and kind of basically crawling.
Crawling up.
It's very controversial in turkey.
And I think it's dangerous. I think it's taking advantage of it. Here, I said, let's don't get into it.
Let's get it. Let me hear your thoughts. People want to hear.
I hate it.
You hate it.
That's my thought on it. If you need a turkey that bad, go to Safeway.
There's a reel right there. What? But is it? Because I'm trying to make this. I'm making this a tripod podcast with deer, predators, and turkeys. But what is causing turkey declines? And we know that's happening across the country. Is it disease? Is it predators? Is it all of the above? Is it climate change? Or is it something else?
There's a lot of things at play. One is the predation issue. The fur market fell through the cellar in 2013. It's coming back a little bit now, but trapper numbers are way down from what they were. People who trapped for money. That almost ceased. We sold good coons for finished coons for $1.50. How many people are going to trap at that?
No, because I've done it now, and I know how much work it is.
It is a lot of work. But that said, now there's another dynamic coming in too. The more affluent people who are land managers or landowners, they don't have a trapper to come trap for them anymore, like happened back in 20 years ago. So they're taking it up themselves, and my goodness, it's fun. It's another enjoyable aspect of the outdoors. So that is helping our predation numbers a little bit. The turkeys and other ground nesting birds, everything wants to eat a turkey egg or a turkey. Coyote, from a coyote to a skunk to a black rat snake.
Owls, hawks, crows.
Yep, everything. Yeah. And so the more we can do to reduce predation, the better we are. And I think we've turned that corner. We're not back where we were, but in Arkansas, for instance, we just had our final harvest figures came in and something above 11,000, which is just chicken feed for a state like here in Wisconsin, but pretty good for us.
11,000 birds. Is that, how does that compare to like 30, 40 years ago?
Well, 30 or 40 years ago, it's more. We peaked, and I think our peak was 2,000, 99 or 2,000 at about 21,000 birds.
Okay.
We're back up to about half that, but we were down around 6,000.
Holy moly!
Yeah, we were just about out of turkeys.
My goodness! And what? I know I'm trying to fit a lot in here, but what about? Because I think it's an interesting point you bring up on land managers, because we deal with a lot of land managers here at Deer and Deer Hunting, and it shifts over to, we're talking about mostly raccoons for turkeys, but what about coyotes? I know that is almost an impossible war to win, especially when you're looking at a region. But can you make a difference on your deer numbers by targeting coyotes, whether it's through trapping or hunting? And what would you suggest if somebody wants to go down that road?
I think you can. You can't, like you said, you can't wipe them out, and nor do we want to.
Right.
But coyotes are very efficient at hunting down fawns. Not so much adults. They do kill some adult animals, but it's mostly the fawn crop that they are most impactful on. And I read some figures on it somewhere, and it's foggy now in my brain, but one coyote pack, which is usually the breeding pair and their cubs of the year, 5 animals maybe, will take care of 20 deer a year.
That's a lot.
And that's, of course, they eat anything. They'll eat anything from a pecan to a
mouse or
mouse or whatever, fish. But they do prey heavily on deer, and it's mostly young deer. because they're easier to catch, I guess.
Fawns are, especially in that window. And I know if we throw Florida into that mix, they have a tremendous problem with black bears, and that's kind of a double whammy effect there.
Arkansas has a pretty good bear population too, and that's one that doesn't get mentioned much, but I bet they're pretty
insanely efficient
on
fawns that
young
are
fawns.
2 weeks old or younger. They're insanely efficient.
Yeah.
John Ozoga, he led that research up in Michigan, and they said in certain pockets. Now he can't cast us across an entire region, but in certain pockets on certain properties, black bears can take out over 80% of over 80% of the newborn fawns. And that's why you see those fawn ratios, like a fawn ratio here where we're sitting. Now that's including every doe that got bred. So a yearling doe, a 5.5-year-old doe. The fawn ratio here is almost 1.0, meaning every single doe, adult doe, had at least one fawn that survived. In those areas, you're looking at 0.2. So that, if you're trying to see that population come up, if you're thick with bears and coyotes, you got a problem. Bears you can't do anything about, especially in Florida. You can't even hunt them, which is a big mistake that they're having down there. But if you get into a state, every other state we talked about, in every other state in the country, and I know there's two sides. I talk out of both sides of my mouth sometimes saying, yes, target as many coyotes as you can. You'll do something. And then I say, you know what? You're not going to make a difference because it's like taking a bucket of water out of the ocean. Where would you stand on somebody trying to wage, like you said, you can't take them all out, but wage war on coyotes? What would your recommendation be for somebody who says, actually, it is a problem in our area?
If trapping coyotes is, I won't say it's difficult, but it does require more than setting a dog-proof trap to catch a coon.
Right.
There's more to it than that. And I don't want to make it sound all mystical and magic, but if you don't do things right, bed your trap solidly and firmly, that trap on location, several other things. You can't cover it in this podcast by any means, but you're going to be working at odds with yourself on coyotes. You'll educate them and not catch them, and then they become hard to catch. You catch him the first time that he visits the set, he'll never get trap shy. You pinch his toes once or twice, and you won't catch him again.
So would you recommend, for somebody who wants to try it, would you recommend trapping or hunting them?
Hunting, that's where I was going. Especially night scope hunting. If you're in a state, Arkansas has recently gone to night vision hunting, and it has really made a difference on our coyotes.
Really?
It really has. There are people that just thrive on it, and they're very efficient, and they're very they stick to it. It's quite a not a challenge, but it's very exciting. I've done it one time, and to see those things coming in, that green dot coming at you in the night, it's something to see. I won't get into it because I'm too old, but I can see the allure of it, and it's very efficient.
That wasn't the answer I was expecting. And David, I think we're gonna have to try this because I've never tried it.
Really? Game.
I've never tried night hunting. I've hunted with people that have coon hunted at night. That was a lot of fun. That was in Texas, but I've never done the coyote thing. And I thought you were gonna say the opposite. I thought you were gonna say if you want to target coyotes, you should learn how to trap and you should trap them.
Well, yeah, that's the other side of the coin, and that's the side I'm on. But I think it's easier to get into. Of course, those scopes are expensive and all that. And
but once you have it, you have it.
But once you have it, you have it, and it doesn't require I'm not going to say skill level because it's not a skill. It's a technique.
Sure.
You just have to master, and it requires paying attention to detail. To trap, I'm talking about. Not so much with hunting. You can set up in a good location like we've been talking about, and turn on your machine, and you're in business.
That sounds like fun. We're gonna have to try it. Okay, before we let you go, Jim, I want you to talk about. You've written several books about turkey hunting, and they are among the best out there. Tell the listeners and the viewers what it's called. Bad Birds, right? It's a series, and you've done 3 of them. Tell us a little bit about what's in those books and where people can find them.
Well, your Turkey and Turkey Hunting magazine, Brian Levitt, the editor, back when.
One of my best friends.
Yeah.
I text him every day, but it's not about hunting. It's about jokes and everything else.
But Brian, I pitched Brian an idea in 2000, the year 2000, about I wanted to do a column, a running column called, and I had the title for it, Bad Birds, about turkeys that have beat me up. Sometimes I kill them, sometimes I didn't, but they were all difficult turkeys. And he took me up on it, and it's been in every issue since of the magazine. There's been a Bad Birds, and so over those years, I've done about 120, 130 of them, and I took the first 40 and made Bad Birds. Well, it was just Bad Birds, wasn't Bad Birds 1, because I wasn't planning to do a second one, But years went on by, and I got another 35 or 40 of them together, and so there came Bad Birds 2, and now there's Bad Birds 3. So, but they're stories of mostly defeat in the turkey.
But you learn from defeat.
Oh yeah, Tom Kelly said
one of the greatest turkey hunters ever.
That you learn how to turkey hunt by going out in the woods and making mistakes in front of turkeys, and they'll be glad to point out your mistakes to you. So that's kind of paraphrasing what he said.
But now we have to do a bad coyote and a bad deer because they're all the same.
Yeah.
Where can people find these books?
You can find them on Amazon mostly. Bad Birds 3.
Can they contact you directly?
Yes, they will.
And do you have a website or something we can share? Maybe we can share it in the comments.
Just email would be the best.
So we're going to share that. We'll share that email in the comments.
Okay.
So if you guys are listening to this, you want to check those out, you can get a copy straight from Jim. I'm sure he'll autograph it for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you want that autograph because that's a very cool thing. I know I don't want to embarrass you, but that's coming from the man himself. Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it so much and everything that you do for all of our publications here at Media 360. And I'm finally glad to get you on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. For Jim Spencer, I am Dan Schmidt. This podcast, Deer Talk Now, comes at you every Thursday. Check them out wherever podcasts you can download, or you can check them out, the video versions, on YouTube, which is YouTube.com/DDH Online. Facebook, Instagram, and others. We will catch you next week, Thursday, for another episode of Deer Talk Now. The Deer Talk Now podcast is brought to you by Mossberg, Wildlife Research Center, Traditions Firearms, Outdoor Edge Knives, Hoyt Archery, and 10 Point Crossbow.